G'day, Greg from Raine and Horne in Bathurst. Today I'm catching up with a good friend of mine, Ian Behan from realestate.com.au home loans. And I've asked Ian to come in and have a bit of a talk to us about lending at the moment and the marketplace around lending, obviously with the Banking Royal Commission. So welcome, Ian.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for coming in. First of all, we probably should state, Ian, that this information we're talking about today is general in nature, and that any consumer that's looking for home loan information should seek professional advice from someone like yourself, a broker, or their banking institution.
Yes, absolutely.
Ian, obviously the Royal Commission has been changing things up in the banking sector and the lending criteria, and from my point of view, we're seeing delays and blowouts in funding approvals. So can you just explain to us a little bit about what's going on in the background there and what's caused some of those changes?
Probably largely knee-jerk reaction, I think, to what we're hearing from the Royal Commission. The report from that will be handed down early next year. So I suppose because of that added scrutiny that the banks are under, they're under the spotlight, they're sort of dotting their I's and crossing their T's, which is causing some delays, and it is causing a little bit of, I suppose, pain in terms of those delays for both customers and people such as yourselves as agents that are dealing with vendors and the purchasers. But having said that, there was some news, one of the big four banks saying that they're hungry for business and that they're trying to attract new business from new customers in particular. And that was predominantly for owner-occupied properties. But there is some movement back in the investors market as well, where they're obviously still trying to attract some new clients and new business as well.
So processing times, have they blown out? Is it something that is like a deliberate type thing, or is it just because of those changes, there's more paperwork involved, things are taking longer that way?
It is definitely deliberate, I think, I've experienced that just in recent weeks myself. So, what you might have thought previously would have sailed through, fairly quickly with the bank in terms of an application and through to approval is taking a little longer. At this time of year, that's probably also in large part due to it's the busiest time for lending through the spring period coming right up to Christmas. But on top of that, I say banks have been somewhat conservative, I guess, making sure that they don't step out of line in terms of their responsible lending requirements, particularly, I say, given that they're all under the spotlight with the recent Royal Commission. So it is something that's definitely being experienced at the moment.
Fair enough. So what steps could people take, or people that are looking to get into the home loan market, so first home buyers or people that are looking to upgrade, what sort of steps could they be taking now to sort of put themselves in a good position, so to move quickly on a property rather than see some of the delays that are out there in the marketplace at the moment?
Good question.
Pre-approval, obviously, from my point, we see pre-approval where consumers have had pre-approval and then they go back to get their formal approval, but unfortunately something seems to go awry in the middle and there's delays or it doesn't come through.
The best advice I could give is making sure that in terms of people's, if they're purchasing and they're relying on obviously a deposit, that they've got the funds required for their deposit. By and large, most banks are going to need to see that they've had a good savings history over a period of at least 3 months. Because the banks, from the bank's point of view, if they've got that savings discipline, then they relate that to being able to then obviously pay a mortgage and make regular payments off the mortgage. Having any existing debts clean and tidy in terms of repayment histories on those, credit cards, making sure that they're paid on time, that they're not over their limits on their cards, so that nothing's falling into arrears basically, because all those sorts of things are scrutinised carefully by the banks as well. So they're the main things I would suggest. In terms of your question around pre-approvals.
So is there a difference between like some of these pre-approvals that we're seeing, and is there a better way to go about it?
There definitely is. So some banks, the larger banks in particular, don't fully assess pre-approval applications when they receive them. So the data so whether the customer does that directly with the bank, or if they do that online themselves, or even through a broker, when the application goes to the bank, they're not actually being fully assessed by a human. So the bank relies on that, approving that application based on the data that's been entered, using the computer algorithms or the bank's system to say, you've been approved based on that information you provided, but nobody's actually physically assessed that application. So there are some banks though that will fully assess the application.
Yep.
So pre-approval. So when they receive the application, it's actually looked at by a human, by a person.
Yep.
So they're vetting the application and checking that the data matches the documents that have been provided as well.
Yep.
That are payslips, bank statements, etc.
Okay.
So it's about setting expectations. When I see clients knowing which banks do that full assessment,
Yep.
I generally say to them, if you're looking for a pre-approval, we're going to steer away from those particular banks.
Yep.
And let's just stick with the banks where we know that they're fully assessing that application.
So if someone's been in and seen their broker or their bank and got that full pre-approval,
Yep.
what sort of time frame should we be seeing from from that person being able to put an offer in and go from being pre-approved to formally approved?
The pre-approval to formal approval, once they've found the property, it should happen within a matter of a week. You would expect, because it's usually then subject to only a satisfactory valuation.
Yeah.
So the only thing that might sometimes delay that is if the valuer physically can't get to the property for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the property's tenanted. Other than that, if a valuer can get out to the property and get the valuation report back to the bank, which they've got turnaround times of generally 48 hours to get their reports back to the bank. From pre-approval to formal approval should be no more than a week.
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks at most. Some of those
at very most.
Pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the key to it, I guess, is really making sure that your pre-approval is a full and thorough pre-approval.
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. That's a good point, because so with that full proper pre-approval in place, that does put the purchaser in the box seat, because if they're competing against other buyers, they want to be able to jump on the property when they find the right one, put in a firm offer, knowing that they've got the backing of their finance and with a proper pre-approval in place.
Indeed. We've covered a fair bit there, so and I think the consumer should be able to gather from that, that there are some steps that they can take to make sure that they put themselves in the driver's seat for making a positive step forward on their purchase for their new property.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks very much for coming in, Ian.
Thanks, Greg.
Appreciate the time.
My pleasure. Thank you
very much, and look forward to seeing you soon.